Do you have a podcast? Are you looking to bring guests onto your show? Do you already have guests on your show and you're looking to be a better interviewer? Well, this is the episode for you. Hey, I'm Coach Molle and I help small businesses grow their visibility online, and one of the tools that we use is podcasting. So let's talk about being an awesome interviewer, asking the right questions, all that kind of stuff, so that you and your podcast become a stage that your ideal customer wants to come hang out at. They want to listen to your show. They want to boost up your show in the ratings, give you those 5 stars, put those awesome comments, and share it with their friends, right? Because you're full of valuable content. But if you're like me, you've probably listened to a ton of podcasts and seen that there are some pretty friggin' amazing interviews out there. And then there are those that are less than awesome. And today, we're going to try and avoid being in one of those categories, at least. I'm going to show you the podcast hack that most hosts forget. We'll talk about how to ask engaging questions and 3 tips for active listening. For this and more, stay tuned, my friends. First things first, podcasting hack that most hosts forget is to be genuinely interested in the guests that you have on your show. I have seen so many up-and-coming entrepreneurs actually running podcasts where they bring on other guests who might be their ideal clients or maybe other experts in their industry, and they ask ridiculous questions because they don't seem interested. They seem like they're trying to push a narrative instead of genuinely being interested in the topic. See, the thing is, those who are listening to your podcast, they're listening because they are genuinely interested in the topic. So you want your listener to feel engaged in the conversation, engaged in the episode, so that they stay and listen to the whole thing. We want them to get that awesome value from the episode. And so what we need to do is to make sure that we are asking awesome questions, which comes from following that same line of curiosity. If your listener is coming from a place of curiosity, you should be asking questions from a place of curiosity. So bring on guests you can nerd out with. I'm genuinely interested in you guys as my visibility hackers, so why don't you introduce yourself down in the comments below? Where are you from? What you do? What are you building? What's your purpose and passion in life? But most importantly, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why? I would be a pine tree because they're both soft and strong, but we can follow this conversation down in the comments. Let me know what tree you'd be. All joking aside, my friends, let's talk about asking engaging questions. This is the meat of the episode that I know you've been waiting for this. So how do you ask engaging questions? Well, it starts, yes, we've already talked about it, starts with curiosity, and then the second step is it requires research. You do need to do your background research. I know when I started interviewing people, I got to this place where I was like, I'm so cool, I'm so good at this, it's natural to me, I'm just having a conversation. These were all things I told myself. And then I didn't have to do any of this research. It was clearly just my excitement and my tones of voice that would get people excited as well to hear this new guest. And I would completely miss the opportunity to introduce my guest and to frame that experience for my listener. And that is such a missed opportunity, and I want you to avoid that at all costs. So what you need to be focusing on, action steps, if we want to talk that language today, is I want you to actually do the research and write the bios and introductions for your guests. Yeah, they can present some to you, but the thing is, what I found, I went from not writing them at all to, I'll get the guests to write them for me and I'll just read them. Well, that became a branding inconsistency. Every guest has a different tone, a different voice that comes comes out of their biographies and of their introductions if they write them themselves. And that becomes inconsistent in the message that you are presenting in your show, whether it's a podcast or a live show or you're doing it live on stage. We want to take control of that branding because it's our brand on the line, right? So we also know our customer and where they are, what they're struggling with. We can help specify, connect the different pieces of this guest's expertise in a way that is aligned with who our guest is and the struggles, or who our customer is and the struggles that they're currently facing. It says specifically to our customers, this is why this guest matters to you. It's a lot more in line with who your customer is, and it keeps your branding in line. There are 3 different places I want you to look in order to get really great questions for your guests and to help you form that basis for your guest's introduction. You're going to have to research your guest in order to come up with that introduction, and in the meantime, this is where I like to generate a lot of questions as well. I find also that creating that introduction for my guest also helps my guest understand what key points are really, really important. So 3 different places you can look for information like that is on your guest's About Me page. Usually they're going to have some kind of an introduction, an intro note, a bio, maybe even a media package. There's going to be tons of stuff in there, and if they're written well, it's going to be packed full of highlights. The second place I want you to look is on their socials, on their Instagram feed and their YouTube channel. Watch some of their videos. If they have a podcast, listen to a bunch of episodes, get a feel for who they are, their content, and places where you can start to dive in and connect back to the message that they're sharing with their audience. And the third place that not all guests will have, or might not be as easy for you to get access to, is their previous appearances on other shows, whether they're podcasts or live shows. That will give you a feel for what their tone of voice is, how animated they are when they're talking, and will also highlight some of the key points about their story that would be interesting that you can tie back in your episode as well. When you do your research, it really stands out in the kinds of questions that you're asking. You're not just asking these form questions. There are some podcast formats that are taught out there that teach you to ask the same questions to every single guest. And I find that's really impersonal. It's a great place to start to have, say, 3 core questions that you ask every guest, but you need to look for more nuance. It's that nuance that's going to separate you from the generalist podcasts out there and the generalist shows, and you as the expert. The expert understands the nuance and the differences and is able to play with your area of expertise. And that, my friends, is important for you guys to work on. Another important task that's easy to do is to hit the subscribe button. I know you probably still have questions about how to ask great questions. This is something we could literally run a masterclass on. But in order to help you guys, I want to know specifically if you have questions about questions about asking questions, let me know down in the comments because I will make specific videos answering your questions about questions. Yeah, active listening is not the same as the humming and hawing and nodding your head and making it look like you're paying attention. That worked in maybe middle school to make the teachers think that you were paying attention, but they definitely saw through that, by the way. Active listening is the kind of listening that makes you exhausted at the end of the day. It's the kind of listening where your brain is working 10,000 times faster than it usually is. It's the kind of listening that requires all of our senses. 2 different ways to practice your active listening would be 1, paraphrasing. So after someone gives you a little bit of information, you want to repeat back in your own words what they've said. And ask to make sure that what you've repeated back, what you've paraphrased is correct. That shows that you're looking to make sure that you understand the other person. It makes them feel heard. And that is a great way to get more information out of people as well, to open up that conversation, to let people's guards down, right? The other part of active listening is probing questions. So these are the kinds of questions that aren't judgmental, they're not accusatory, they're asking for deeper clarification. So for example, you could say things like, so when you said the sky was green, was it like a dark green or like a neon toxic green? That is taking one specific detail and asking and probing down a little bit deeper. It's kind of also like saying why. You know, that question ladder when you just keep asking why a bunch of times in order to come down to the essence of the problem. So paraphrasing and asking probing questions. But I want you to make sure that you are not interrupting people while they're talking. Your guests are on your show. This is important for a couple of reasons. Your guests are on your show. A, you want their expertise, so let them talk. Let them talk as long as it's on topic. Let them go. Let them talk. Second reason is because for the listener's perspective, when people are talking over each other in a podcast format or a live show or even live on a stage, it is so hard to listen to. And it's so easy to just tune out. And then you've lost that listener and they may take 3 times as long to get back on track, and you might not have that long left in your show. Or worse, they tune out entirely and they stop listening. They turn off your episode and they move on to someone else's show. That's what I want to stop from happening in your shows. So what you have to do is ask better questions. So again, let me know down in the comments below if you have specific questions about questions. I would love to hear from you guys. I will see you again in our next episode. Until then, remember, I love you, be excellent to each other, and go find your people because they're out there waiting for you.